Hey everybody, welcome to episode 19 of the hashtag Hey Kerwin show. This is where you get to ask the questions and I get to give you the answers, and because I know more than Google, basically. Let's be honest, I don't really, but I do like Google. And you know, my ex-wife used to call me, she said, I don't need Google, I have you. Boom.
Diego Londono asks,
Hey Diego, one of our K2s.
what are the main indicators that reflect having a strong and sustainable culture?
What are the main indicators that reflect a strong and sustainable culture? Values. Like, I think it's really, actually no, there's probably three things. The three things that I see that reflect a strong and sustainable culture is a very pervasive understanding and expression of the purpose, a very pervasive expression and understanding of the mission, a very pervasive expression and understanding of the values, because these are the fundamentals. These are what we measure culture by, because culture is nothing more than, it's a vibe, it's an energy, it's a feeling, and it comes from the people that are in there, and the energy that people put off really come down to the alignment of, you know, what they're aligning to. And in business, we've got to be very clear on our purpose, and our purpose is our reason why we exist. Why do we exist in the first place? And our mission has to be something that we're measuring our purpose against, because you know, sometimes if we're just completely purpose-driven, we might be out there helping the world and doing great things, but if we're not actually measuring it in a commercial way, if there's no commercial framework around that purpose, then we're essentially, you know, we've got a hobby or a hyperventilated, you know, charity mindset that might be doing great things, but we're not actually doing it in a sustainable way. And in order for a business to be sustainable, in order for a culture to be ultimately sustainable, there has to be a strong commercial model around that. And then there needs to be values that become like almost like the GPS guidance system. These are the benchmark behaviors. And by the way, the values aren't things that we aspire to do. The values are the things that we naturally do and naturally show up and how we naturally behave. But most importantly, when we are under stress, when we are under pressure, they're the things that we look to remind us, okay, if I'm maybe a little bit stressed right now, if I'm maybe overwhelmed right now, maybe if I'm a little bit emotional right now, what is the best thing for me to do? I look at the values and I go, right, okay, so in a situation like this, so for example, one of our values is, you know, be deliberate, not desperate. We've just did a video editing or a proofing session, or, you know, authorization session, approval session before, and we're talking about introducing B-roll, and we, you know, talked about introducing a cut from another film, and I was like, hang on guys, slow down. You know, we need to be deliberate here. We're not desperate for B-roll. We're not desperate for footage. Just leave it the way it is, and we'll just push it out as is, because we don't need to be so desperate. Let's be very deliberate about the things that we need to do. So in situations like that, where the team were a little bit unsure of, do we leave a piece of content in, do we pull it out? It really just came down to reflecting on the values and letting the values really guide us and direct us to do what was right, which in most cases is what is the right thing. And I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk says the right thing is always the right thing to do in every situation. So for a culture to be sustainable, for a culture to be strong, there needs to be leaders. There needs to be a leader. There needs to be other leaders that are in there constantly communicating the purpose or living the purpose, constantly communicating the values, but also having the systems in place and the mechanisms in place to be measuring the performance of that mission. And for us, it's planning. You know, we do annual planning, we do quarterly planning, we do monthly reviews, we do weekly planning and reviews, we do daily planning and reviews. And so for us, we're constantly, you know, testing and measuring and setting and reviewing goals against the mission, which is 10 years, against the year, which is 12 months, against the quarter, against the month, against the week, against the day, so that there's a real strong alignment and a driver. There's a constant driver from the top all the way down towards the mission, but it's done with behaviors that are expressed and demonstrated around the values. And the only way that a culture that can become sustainable and strong over a long period of time is if that stuff is ingrained. But it starts with the top. It's got to be initiated by the leaders, and then there's got to be vacuums or voids that are created and opportunities and challenges given to the people within that business to step up into that business to start really living and demonstrating. And so for me, social pressure is very important. The Pygmalion effect is very important. The Pygmalion effect is a precursor for the social pressure that we talk about. And the Pygmalion effect really comes down to the expectations. And the expectations of the leader, the expectations that a leader has on its team actually impact the probability of certain behaviors taking place. And if there's an expectation from the top that people are going to behave a certain way, it's not going to guarantee that people will behave a certain way, but it'll certainly increase the probability of people behaving in a certain way that will be aligned with what the expectation is. You know, expectation is 90% of the result. And if you know what to expect, and if you define what to expect, and you hire, most importantly, to the expectations and to the alignment of the purpose, the mission, and the values, and you are constantly planning in line with the purpose and the mission of those values, and you are constantly assessing and revising and acknowledging people's behavior based on the purpose, the mission, and the values, it becomes ingrained, it becomes autonomous behavior. And that's ultimately the goal of culture, is you don't want to be constantly reminding people what the values are. You don't want to be constantly reminding people what the purpose is, constantly reminding what the mission is, and constantly, telling them, well, have you looked at your plan? You need to be ingraining this in such a way with people who are have the ability to self-manage, have the ability to self-direct, have the ability to self-lead in such a way where we do it with that frequency, we do it with that repetition to a point where we don't need to do it anymore. It becomes autonomous behavior, becomes automatic behavior, becomes habitual behaviors, and then you have a strong and self-sustaining culture that just drives forward. And then all you need to do is fucking point in the right direction and then go. And sometimes that doesn't even need a push. Sometimes they'll pull you with you if you set it up the right way. Thanks, Diego. My friend. Diego, he's a great guy.
He is.
He's an incredible man.
That was beautiful.
And Lena, you're amazing as well. Mwah. Love you guys.
The next question is from Greg.
Which Greg?
K2 Elite Greg. Only Greg. No last name Greg.
No last name Greg. I'm going to just assume it's the Greg that I think it is.
I think it is the Greg you think
is it the Greg that I'm thinking is from K2? Well, this is a K2 round of Hey Kerwin. All right, Greg, what have you got?
Do you personally schedule your days, or do you have someone to do it for you?
Great question.
Also, geez, you have some party arms on you these days. What have you been doing?
That Greg. I know who.
Yeah, it is Greg.
Do I schedule my own day? Do I have someone that does it for me? A combination of both. I work with a combination of 2 PAs that also juggle other roles as well to ensure that my plan, my annual plan, but more importantly, my quarterly priorities and the things that I need to be working on for that month, the goals that I need to be working on for that week, and the tasks I need to be working for that day are scheduled into my diary for me. And so, in essence, I schedule all my time. And because I'm ADHD, right? And people say, "Oh, you lose the H when you get older." And I didn't. Okay. So for me, I need to have an enormous amount of structure around me. I'm very disciplined, but the reason the way that I work works is because I have the discipline to apply myself to a structure. Okay, I am typically not very structured, and when I don't have structure around me, like you can see it, like when I don't know what to do, I literally walk around like a lost puppy. And I'm like, has anyone got something for me to do? I literally walk around looking for things to do. And very rarely, but oftentimes I will look at my priorities, but other times I'll just go and wander around, see if there's someone that I can help. So for me, I found the best way for me to operate is, yes, I have a list of goals that I'm working on that are connected to my quarterly tops or quarterly tactical operating priorities. Yes, I have a list of daily tasks that I'm working towards, but I schedule everything into my diary to ensure that it gets done. Because so many times we'll have a task that we want to get done, or we'll have a goal that we want to get done, or a priority we want to get done, but we never get it done because there are so many other things that scream louder than the priority, the goal, or the task that we have. So for me, the way that I ensure that things get done is I schedule them into my diary, and then all of the other urgent, noisy stuff, it gets placed in around it. And I have 2 people in place to gatekeep me and protect me to ensure that my schedule is always completed. To the point where I have mastered the 5-minute meeting. I normally have a fucking egg timer here somewhere. I've mastered the 5-minute meeting, and I come in, it's structured my entire life around performance, especially in the office. So for me, most days I don't eat my first meal until sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I can literally, and even when I do eat, I'm normally eating in a meeting. I'm normally eating while doing approvals or eating whilst writing copy. So I can literally come in here. If I've got my son, it'll be somewhere between 9 and 9:15. If I don't have my son, I can get in here somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30. And I'm not fucking kidding. I can work back to back to back to back with no breaks apart from running. And I do fucking run to the toilet. Most of the time I don't walk. I will run, or I'll have a little bit of a trot. And people, now I just want to stop with people going, "Oh my God, that sounds fucking terrible." First of all, don't fucking judge me. All right. I don't judge you. And if I do, you have the right to spit fire at me. For me, I actually fucking really love being busy. I love being directed. I love being focused. And my brain is constantly looking for something that I can focus on that I enjoy. And this is the key thing. Everything that I do, I've been able to delegate so much of what I do to a point where the only things that I focus on a daily basis are literally the things I fucking enjoy, the things that I'm really good at, and the things that I absorb my time, absorb my creativity, and allow me to express my genius in a way that fills me up and lights me up. So for me, I love the fact that I can come in here at 8 a.m. and just work back to back like a fucking machine until 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. when I have my first meal, eat whilst having a meeting, okay, enjoying it. To me, that's social. Most people eat while they socialize. I'll eat and socialize at the same time. And then I can power through and leave, if I'm going to pick my son up, or if I'm going home with my son, I'll try and get out of here 4:30, 5:30. Like tonight I don't have my son, so it's 7 p.m. in the evening, and I'm still here. And I said to the guys, I'll be here till fucking midnight because I go on holidays next. I go on holidays. And guess what I'm doing for my holidays? I'm literally going on a holiday 16 kilometers away from where I live. I'm literally renting a house 16 kilometers away from where I live, so that it's not too far away from my house, so I can go home and feed the cat, but also so I can come into the office and work out, because now my gym is in the fucking office, which ensures that I'm going to come in here probably 3 or 4 times a week while I'm on holidays and probably get some shit done, because I'm going to be fucking bored otherwise, let's be honest. But my point being is I love working at that pace, because the reality is I can do more in a day than most people can do in a fucking week. I can do sometimes more in a day than most people can do in a fortnight, in some cases maybe even a month if you're really fucking lazy. But for me, I've worked out what works for me. And just because you might be listening to my model and going, that's just fucking nuts, I can't do it, that's fine. What you need to understand, I haven't always lived this way. I haven't always been this way. Like I'm the tip of the arrow. I'm the point of the spear. This is 43 years of development. I still remember like 8 years ago, it might have even been less, when I would say to my team or whoever was running my diary at the time, okay, I can only do meetings 2 days of the week and I can do no more than 4 meetings a day. Like, that's my fucking morning now. Like, I'm not kidding. That's fucking up until 11 a.m. now. Like, I can do the amount of meetings that I'd normally do in a week now. I can do it before fucking 11 a.m. or 12 a.m. by Monday morning. So for me, I have been constantly exposing myself to greater levels and frequencies of information, greater levels and intensities of stress, greater and stronger levels of pressure, to the point where I've gradually over time, I've experienced a lot of burnout, but gradually over time, but I haven't burned out for a long time now, but gradually over time, I've been able to condition myself to perform at higher and higher and higher and higher and higher levels, to a point now, and I don't joke about this, touch wood, I have literally had 1 day off in the last I can say this now, 7 weeks. Yeah, I've been going full time, 7 weeks, and I've had 1 day off. And look at me, I'm still healthy. Okay, I'm still happy, I'm still hydrating, I'm eating great, I'm eating very strong nutrition, I'm not drinking any alcohol, I am fucking literally on fire, and it's 7 o'clock on a Thursday night before Good Friday. And then some of you, I know I'm gonna hear it, well, you have no life. This is my life. And for me, there's no separation between what I love and what I do. I'm not, I saw this video the other day about this kid who he was always dying for the weekend, dying for the next party, dying for the next holiday, and then one day he discovered he was actually dying from cancer and he had 2 weeks to live. For me, I love what I do. So what I do, my team, they're not only my family, but they're my fucking friends as well. So we go, don't you want to go and hang out with your friends? I do all fucking day. I literally am hanging out with one of my friends now, a new friend, Christian. He's from fucking, what? Norway, yeah, that's right. And what I will say is I've rediscovered coffee, and I have had two, listen to me, quarter shot lattes today, quarter shot. Do you know how embarrassing it is to walk into a coffee shop and ask for a quarter shot? So for all those people that think I'm on drugs, I'm not on drugs, I'm on very small amounts of caffeine, and the last coffee I had was at about 2 o'clock. But my point being is, for me, Greg, scheduling my life like this not only enables me to perform at levels that most people fucking dream of, but it also enables me to express myself and to do the things that I love at such a high level that no one can keep up with me. And so for me, I never worry about competition. I never worry about, what the other guy is doing. First and foremost, I'm abundant. There's so much more opportunity. There's more opportunity for everyone than there's ever been. But for me, I just focus on me. I just focus on doing me. And doing me may not be the best way for you to do you. And what's important is finding out what works for you. And, putting yourself into a situation where you can ultimately get to a point where you do focus on the things that you love. But to answer your question in a very long way, yeah, I do have people that help and support and protect my time. I've even said to my team members, it's their responsibility, my PAs, it's their responsibility to end meetings, not mine. Like, it is not my responsibility to tell Christian that his time is up at the end of this, hey, Kerwin. It's up to the PA to open the door, come in and literally come in and say to Christian, time's up, time to get out. Because I've said to them, that literally is not something I want to be thinking about. I don't want to be sitting there thinking and looking at my clock going, when is the meeting going to be ending? Because that is literally creativity and attention that's being sucked out of my brain that can be put into something like this and creating content, whereby someone else, I will pay someone else to time a meeting. I will pay someone else to watch my schedule. I will pay someone else to gatekeep me so that I can focus my mind on the things that matter. Hope that helps.
Lovely. That was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Gregory Diamond.
See, there's more than one Greg.
How do you deal with conflict between team members?
Openly and honestly. Conflict is one of those things, you're never going to avoid it. It's always going to happen based on the diversity of cultures and personalities. We tend to minimize conflict in our environment by hiring people that are very aligned to the values, the purpose and the mission. You see, for the most part, conflict only arises when there is friction or resistance, where you've got two competing sets of values, where someone has, their way of doing things which is different from someone else's. And if you've got two people that value open and honest communication, two people that value innovation and constantly improving, and two people that value working smarter, not harder, if they've got different ways of doing things, they're not going to create and if you've got two people that know how to check their egos at the door, you're never going to find yourself in a situation where it becomes mortal combat. I typically find most situations where it arises where it's mortal combat, where people are offended, and it becomes where you've got feelings that have been hurt, is because first of all the ego is involved, and secondly you don't have two people that are flexible to other people's perspectives and opinions. So for me, the first thing that we do when there is conflict, which is so rare, and I'm not saying it never happens, over the years we've had our fair share of conflict, here and there. But the way that we deal with it is, first things first, is we sit down and we diffuse the situation. And we do that by saying, look, let's just check our egos at the door. Let's be aware of what the symptoms are for our ego, which is defense, denial, distortion, deflection, justification, demonstration, blame, and attack. And if we can be aware of what those symptoms are, go, right, okay, let me just take a few deep breaths, let me regulate. First of all, let me be aware that I'm triggered. All right, let me breathe. Let me reset my autonomic nervous system so I can get my biochemistry into a working order. Let me just reestablish a meaning that's perhaps going to be more helpful in this situation. So this person isn't attacking me. This person isn't wrong. This person's just got a different perspective, and maybe I'm going to learn something. So if I just shut the fuck up and maybe listen, and I do say that with a little bit of jest, but also a lot of truth, then maybe I'm going to learn something from this situation, and I'm not going to learn that I'm right. I'm going to learn that perhaps there's a new way of doing things. And when it comes to conflict, you also need to understand it's not about being right, it's about being happy. And sometimes I've discovered that there are certain people that just want to be right. And there are other people, like for me personally, I have a very high value on harmony. And so for me, I'm less interested in being right and more interested in keeping peace. And so in many cases, I will allow someone to be right if it helps them feel better. And you might be going, but what, Kerwin? Does that? No, I will share what I feel. Okay, I will share my point of view, but I'm not so attached to my opinion that I have to prove myself right, because that's demonstration. That's ego. And that's rooted in, an opinion. And the only way that you can have conflict is when you take a position. And if you have the ability to not take a position on anything, then no one can ever push back at you. And for me, I have the ability, I have opinions, but I don't take positions that cause conflict, because for the most part, now I'm not fucking perfect. Sometimes I do take a position depending on it. Sometimes I do draw a line in the sand, but for the most part, I have a higher value on harmony. I have a higher value on balance. I have a higher value on moving through situations and sorting things out. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm submissive. Fuck me. Do I look like a submissive individual? I'm not a submissive individual, but it just makes me very tactical and very strategic, I should say, in the way that I approach conversations, because I don't have this egoic desire to be right. I don't have this egoic desire to prove someone wrong. I don't have this egoic desire to demonstrate how intelligent I am, and if you think that that is where I am driving from in any area where I'm delivering content, I'd say 9 out of 10 times, you're probably going to be wrong, because for me, I have no desire to demonstrate my intelligence. I have a desire just to share what I learn, share what I know, share my experience. And that for me is not rooted in me trying to demonstrate any intelligence. It's just rooted in my desire or my deepest value or my deepest purpose, which is to help people. And I'm more driven by helping people than I am about being right. I'm more driven by, sharing from experience to help other people than I am about, demonstrating how smart I am, because I don't always get things right. And when I don't, if I don't take a position, then I'm more likely to learn if someone gives me feedback. So for me, check your ego at the door. It's not about being right, it's about being happy. But us understand the only way that conflict can take place is when you resist, okay, or when you take a position. Those who take no position cannot be pushed back on, because there is no resistance. If you're flexible in every approach, then there's no friction. Hopefully that helps.
Perfect.
He's like a gem, that guy.
Oh, good one. You're good, you are.
Love you, Greg.
One last question.
One last question.
From everyone's absolute favorite K2 Elite member, Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Yeah.
We have an anonymous K2 member.
And he or she wants to know, how do you know your baseline?
My baseline. How do I know my baseline? That's a really good question. Now, for those of you playing at home who don't know what the baseline is, one of the things that we teach a lot in our programs, but especially in K2 Elite, is the tools and the discipline around regulating stress and regulating emotion, based on the understanding that the more we know how to regulate stress and the more we know how to regulate emotions, the greater and the more expanded our perspective will be. Because when you're stressed, you narrow your focus. When you're emotional, you narrow your focus, and it literally limits the amount of information your brain will absorb, because you become less conscious when you're emotional. You become less conscious when you're stressed. And so for me, one of the keys to learning how to regulate at a high level, whether you're in a fucking war zone, with a bullet singing past your head and mortars going off, or whether you're, on the football field about to convert, a try and you've got 80,000 people watching and 8 billion people tuning in, or whether you're about to deliver a presentation, or whether you're in the middle of a sales negotiation. The first thing you need to know is, when am I emotional? When am I stressed? And the only way that you know when you're emotional or when you're stressed is knowing what your baseline is. And the challenge is, for most people spend their life being so stressed or spend their life being so emotional that their baseline is actually being stressed. Their baseline is actually being emotional. Whereas for me, I have done years of a lot of therapy, a lot of meditation, a lot of self-work, a lot of development work to essentially, peel back the layers to get to a point where I know what my baseline is. Now, I did use an incredibly potent piece of software that was potent for me, that was developed by the Heart Math Institute that actually measures heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is an indication of stress and emotion. And so for me, I literally, when I first got my hands on this piece of software, and I know fucking it's going to light up, everyone's going to ask, Heart Math, M-A-T-H, this piece of software, I literally wore it for it was weeks at a time. I'd be wearing it, and what I'd be looking at is I'd be looking at my own heart rate variability, and anytime my variability started to shudder, anytime I got off baseline, I was like tuning in, what does this feel like? But most importantly, whenever I was in this beautiful variability where my heart was fully opening and fully closing, and I had massive coherence between the heart and the brain, I would sit there and tune into it, and I'd go, right, what does this feel like? What am I thinking about? What does this feel like to be coherent? And I kept on tuning in, to the point where anytime a little bit of emotion crept in, I knew straight away. Anytime a little bit of stress crept in, I knew straight away, because I was so tuned into my baseline. Now, I spent weeks, the culmination years, but again, I don't have the time, it depends on how bad do you want it. And for me, this desire to learn this and to regulate at such a high level was born out of living decades with high levels of insecurity, high levels of anxiety, and high levels of fight, flight being constantly activated, stress, adrenaline being constantly activated, because I just didn't know how to regulate. And so I went on this enormous journey to learn how to regulate in ridiculously stressful situations. But for the most part, I was learning how to regulate just in normal situations, because even in normal situations, I was highly stressed. And so for me, my motivation was very high to do this, but to the point where now, I meditate every day, twice a day, sometimes more. Most days I'm meditating anywhere between 40 minutes to a couple of hours. So I'm constantly exposing myself to the practices, the disciplines, the techniques, the structures that enable me to bring myself back to the baseline. So I might sound like a highly amped dude, but I can literally just shut down. I can go straight to my baseline, and I'm back to neutral. Okay? Yeah, there are some times I need to know how to communicate for effect, because I need to bring an audience with me on the journey. But what I am doing right now, when I elevate myself, when I elevate my psychology, when I elevate my energy, the difference being is, yes, I'm going above my baseline, but I'm doing it consciously by choice for effect, consciously by choice for impact. And you go, well, that's not very authentic. Yeah, this is me, because this is how I am 80, 90% of the time, but I also know how to relax. I also know how to regulate now at a much healthier level, without substance, without alcohol, without drugs, okay, without behaviors or processes. Well, processes, yes, but I'm talking unhealthy processes like gambling or OCD expressions, that kind of thing. So for me, the baseline is something that we find through exploration. It's like, how do you find base camp? Well, you fucking find it on a map and then you walk there. Okay, how do you know you're at base camp? Well, because when I start going up to, camp 1, I start to feel the effects of altitude. Okay, because if you don't feel the effects of altitude and you keep going, chances are you're going to get altitude sickness. Whereas for most of us, we don't know where our baseline is, and so when we start becoming stressed, we start getting altitude sickness in the form of stress sickness, but we're not aware of it because it feels so normal. We experience things like burnout. We experience things like compromised immune disorders. We experience things like constantly getting the flu or constantly getting the cold, because stress is an immune, it becomes an immune condition. When you're constantly stressed, cortisol constantly running through your brain and body, it does deplete your white blood cells. It does affect your immunology. It does affect your what do you fucking call it? The lymphatic system, to being able to operate at a very high and effective level. And so the less stressed you are, so for example, the more you meditate, the stronger your immune system operates, the stronger your lymphatic system works, and the easier it is for you to regulate in situations where you're exposed to stress, where you're exposed to emotional triggers. But also, here's the catch part, also when you're exposed to bacteria and viruses. Because the more in tune you are with your baseline, the stronger your immune system will be. So not only are you regulating stress and emotion, but you're also regulating your environment and bacteria and viral environment as well. You know, why is it that one person will get more, you know, the person who's really stressed will get sick all the time? And why is it the person who meditates every day, twice a day, you know, why is it so rare that they get sick? Well, you only have to look at the research with meditation to realize that, you know, people who meditate have stronger immune systems, they have stronger neurology, they have less chance of early onset Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and the list goes on. So finding a baseline is a personal journey, but it's one that's worth taking and it takes time. And my advice is anonymous, pursue it.
Perfect.
There we go. Thank you, everybody. That was episode 19 of the Hey Kerwin show. For those of you who want to ask a question, get your questions in. Hashtag Hey Kerwin on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and even spray painting. No, don't spray paint it on the walls. No, but it would be kind of cool. And if you did, take a photo of it. But don't do that. Question of the day. What is the number one thing that stresses you out? What is the thing that you need to become most aware of that takes you out of your baseline? Let me know below in the comment section. What is the number one thing that triggers you, that stresses you out? Let's become aware of it so we can get a handle on it, so we can become more effective at dealing with it when it comes up and navigating our environment. Thank you very much. Make sure you say hi to your mum for me. Till next time.